Welcome to Down the Road with me, Joel Heitkamp. We're going to cover a lot of things today. We're going to get a chance to talk about the Electoral College. We're going to get a chance to visit about, we're going to talk about Darrell Dorgan and whether or not the North Dakota Bar Association will take a look at what Attorney General Wayne Stingham did by throwing us in the middle of that lawsuit that the Supreme Court rejected. Also, we're going to get a chance to talk about whether or not someone deserves and has earned the right to be called doctor, who has earned their doctorate. Now, that obviously relates to the Wall Street Journal article that we've had about Jill Biden and the fact that, quite frankly, in my opinion, she's deserved that right. It's that plain and that simple, but it's absolutely ridiculous that we're even going through that. But first, we're going to bring in Robert Alexander. He's the founding director of the Institute for Civics and Public Policy at Ohio Northern University. Mr. Alexander, welcome to Down the Road.
Hey, it's good to be back, Joel.
Yeah, good to have you with us. I want to talk to you a little bit, if I can, about the Electoral College and where we're at. The Electoral College obviously met at their state's locations. You know, we can talk about the security. We can talk about the ridiculousness of the attempts to kind of change their opinions based upon the election. But mostly, I want you to begin by telling people how it works. I think at times people understand it plays a role in the election, but they don't understand how it works. So, Robert, if you would, tell them about it.
Sure. Yeah, it's actually a process, and it's not one place. And of course, yesterday was kind of the big day when electors met and cast their votes. But it's really a process. It is an attempt to balance all kinds of forms of representation, whether we're talking about political parties and ideology, but of course, federalism is a big piece of it. And that's why we have the composition of the Electoral College as it is, where the most populated states are based upon the representation that they have in the House. And then all states, of course, get 2 Electoral College votes on the basis of their statehood. So that, of course, provides some different advantages and disadvantages across the country. It depends on who you are. But frankly, in my view, it's swing states that get all of the love. And that's where a lot of the action was in yesterday's vote as far as the controversies among electoral slates.
Well, I think that's a gross understatement. In fact, I think you're spot on that swing states get all the love. I mean, North Dakota, the state that I'm in right now, we have 1 congressman, so we have 3 electoral votes. There's always a controversy. You know, in previous elections, we've seen the popular vote go one way and the electoral vote go the other. In this particular case, that's not the case. Joe Biden won this election with 306 electoral votes and won the popular vote by over 7 million votes. Now, that being said, that wasn't the case for Hillary Clinton. Walk people through that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, so one of the big things that we need to keep in mind when we think about the Electoral College is that all states with those electoral votes that they're allotted get to determine how those electoral votes are distributed. And in every single state except for Maine and Nebraska, each state awards their electoral votes to the winner of the popular vote in that state, and they award all of their electoral votes to the candidate or the ticket that wins the vote in that state. So that can lead to some pretty gross distributions, maldistributions. So if you have a 50-50 state, so like Georgia, for instance, where it's just a few thousand votes that made the difference, Joe Biden got 100% or 16 of those electoral college votes. So it doesn't really reflect the events that happen on the ground. And yeah, Hillary Clinton had around 3 million more votes than Donald Trump. Now, what's really interesting in this election, Joe Biden blew Donald Trump out of the water when you look at the popular vote. 7 million more Americans across the country voted for Biden over Trump. But the difference between an electoral college tie and Joe Biden winning the presidency in electoral college was 40,000 votes in 3, ready for it, swing states. Mm-hmm. So those 40,000 people, and if you really divide that up, you got 20,000 people. If they change their minds from Joe Biden to Donald Trump, 20,000. Then we've got an electoral college tie where Donald Trump would most likely have come out of the House of Representatives in a crazy contingency election as the president of the United States, despite losing 7 million more votes across the country.
Well, when you look at this, and by the way, if I'm watching at home right now, you mentioned Maine and Nebraska. I'd be wondering why. What's different with those states than anywhere else, and is that by choice by the state? So explain that to them if you would, Rob.
Yeah, so in every state other than Maine and Nebraska, it's winner take all. That's what we refer to it as, and that certainly works to the advantage of the two major political parties. Maine and Nebraska have a little different system where they have district representation. In those states, and the reason that was a choice. It was a choice made by their state legislatures. They decided, look, we're not getting any attention whatsoever in presidential campaigns. They're just flying right past Nebraska and they're flying right past Maine. And so they moved to this district representation because in certain congressional districts, they're more competitive than other congressional districts. And so now candidates compete for one electoral vote per congressional district in those states. If they win that congressional district, they win an electoral college vote. That happened this year. Joe Biden won a congressional district in Nebraska. He claimed one electoral vote. Donald Trump won one congressional district in Maine. He won one electoral vote. If they did not have those systems, I guarantee you, Joe Biden is not going to Nebraska, and Donald Trump's probably not going to Maine. So that district representation, or at least some form of proportional representation, I think many people would look to and say, well, you know, there's a lot of Democrats in North Dakota and South Dakota that get no attention whatsoever. There's a lot of Republicans in California and New York that get no attention whatsoever. So it's a national popular vote or some form of proportional representation. If you want to have candidates actually, I guess, curry favor for your support.
I want to talk a little bit about the efforts by the Biden administration, or shouldn't say Biden, by the Trump administration to change all this, to go after the delegates themselves. Do you think that stems from the fact that 4 years ago, a couple of the delegates elected to the Electoral College or chosen to go to the Electoral College said, I can't vote for Trump? I mean, there were two individuals after Donald Trump had won those states that were at the Electoral College that said, I can't vote for this man. So they changed their vote. Is that what drove Donald Trump this time to think that he could change some of those?
Well, I think one of the things that you have seen is that they're focused on process, and they're looking and saying, well, if there's an opportunity, if there's an avenue, if there's a ray of daylight, we're going to pursue that. And, you know, we saw it with intimidation of electors. And once you realize that faithless electors were unlikely to happen in this election, that you weren't going to have Biden electors suddenly say, oh, yeah, I support Donald Trump. That was never going to happen. Then you saw the move to say, well, state legislatures have the authority to choose their own electors, and that certainly went by the wayside pretty quickly. You had the courts try and involve themselves in trying to change how election law was determined in those swing states. And then, you know, yesterday you saw some you know, I'm referring to them as bizarro electors, where you had these kind of separate slates of Republican electors cast votes, and I'm putting that in quotes, votes for Donald Trump and Mike Pence in several of those swing states, just in case January 6th, yet another step in this long process where Congress can contest electoral college votes. So, you know, for the diehard Trump supporters, they still believe there's an avenue, but I think just within the last few hours, Mitch McConnell shut the door on that by congratulating Joe Biden and saying it's time to move forward.
Has anything like this happened in America's history? I mean, you look at this and, you know, with the Trump administration, we've been talking about history. History's going to look at it this way. And we've never had a president like this before. And, you know, he's done things that no president has ever been expected to do or we find in any way reasonable. And so, you know, this is so out of the norm. Have we ever, in the history of America, seen this much play, this much attempt to change things through the Electoral College?
Well, one of the things that I have found in my research on the Electoral College and electors themselves, that there's actually a lot of shenanigans and tomfoolery that go on after you and I vote. So we're seeing right now, seeing it play out in real time. So you mentioned 2016, there was this Hamilton elector movement. They were trying to get a number of Republicans on board. And as you pointed out, 2 Republicans did not vote for Donald Trump. 2 more Republicans resigned rather than vote for Donald Trump. So I think that's worth noting as well. You have seen attempts. I mean, Bob Dole once said that 1976, they were shopping. He said this in congressional testimony. We were shopping for some electors. And then he said, oh, excuse me, looking for. Some of this kind of stuff does happen. It happens out of sight. 1960, there was a telegraph campaign that went on to try and oust Kennedy before he took office. But really, I would look to 1876 in that election. And you got to think, we're right on the heels of a civil war. Yeah. In the midst of Reconstruction, you have Rutherford B. Hayes, which his opponents would refer to as Rutherford B. Hayes, lost the popular vote. They sent these dueling slates of electors to Congress, and that's actually the result of that was the Electoral Count Act about a decade after that election to kind of help through situations like we're seeing today. But you don't really want to be in that company. Historically, when you're thinking about Donald Trump and Rutherford B. Hayes.
All the moves over, all the things that Donald Trump is going to try to change this election. Is the election over, Robert?
Okay, so you've been watching Donald Trump for many years. You know it's not over. He's never going to concede. He's always going to say that he was cheated. He's always going to kind of play the conspiracy card. He'll play it through the bitter end. He will be leaving office. Joe Biden will win the presidency with 306 Electoral College votes. He will be inaugurated January 20th, and Donald Trump will continue tweeting into the sunset.
Robert, you nailed it. There's also a step in there that I'm not going to get a chance to visit with you about on January 6th, but we both know what's going to happen on January 20th. And much to the chagrin of Donald Trump, he will not be president of the United States. And I, for one, radio host, can tell you, to me, it's time for him to quit. In any high school football game, he would have been told shake hands by now because the other team is already on the bus and they're gone. Robert, always good to visit with you. Thanks for coming on.
All right, you take care. Have a great day, Joel.
You bet. When we come back, Daryl Dorgan, he has filed a complaint with the North Dakota Bar Association about North Dakota Attorney General Wayne Stenzel. Let's talk to him about it right after this.
Capital City Restaurant Supply is your one-stop shop for quality restaurant products for the large to small kitchens. Commercial-grade restaurant and bar supplies, limb game processing equipment, refrigeration, dinnerware, and smallware. We sell everything including the kitchen sink from trusted manufacturers for the chef and all of us. Open to the public since 1971, we are veteran-owned and North Dakota proud. Let us take care of your restaurant and home kitchen needs today by visiting us at 1414 Interstate Loop in Bismarck or on the web at capitalcityrestaurantsupply.com.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county. Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
For the greatest selection and full menu offering, it's the Four Seasons Restaurant and Ice Cream Parlor in Garrison. Succulent sandwiches, big breakfasts served all day, and delicious desserts. Easy access in and out for campers and RVs. The Four Seasons Restaurant at the top of Main Street, Garrison.
Are you a thrill seeker, sightseer, or day tripper? The Ford Bronco Sport SUV is built for you. Four Bears Casino is giving away a 2021 Ford Bronco Sport loaded with a ton of interior space, safari-style roof, smooth suspension for any terrain, and easy-to-clean surfaces. Qualify now just by playing your favorite slots at Four Bears Casino. Double points on Sundays. Also get in on Super Senior Wednesdays, slot turning Thursdays, and hot seats on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Spin into Four Bears Casino and Lodge for chances to win.
Some things in life are hard. That's why banking shouldn't be. Cornerstone Bank.
Good to have you still going down the road with us. I've been very critical of Wayne Stenjum over the last couple days. I think he embarrassed the state of North Dakota by throwing in with the Texas lawsuit, along with, well, there were 17 states that filed that lawsuit that the Supreme Court, some of the most conservative members of the Supreme Court said, get it out of here. We're not even going to hear it. And basically it was an attempt to overturn a legitimate and free election, which North Dakota didn't belong involving itself in, overturning states' rights. One of the individuals that I think agrees with me on it and has actually taken some steps to deal with the Attorney General on it is, well, he's got a long history, a journalist, a documentary film producer, and quite frankly, North Dakota historian, Daryl Dorgan. Daryl, good to have you going down the road with us.
Good to be with you. Good to be with you in your new role.
Let's talk about what you're doing. Let's talk about what you're doing in relation to Wayne Stenjum.
Well, first of all, let me clarify that he and I have always been on a friendly basis. You know, I covered him for years and everything, but this simply crossed a line, and it was actually the second time in about a year. And what he has done, you know, he's gone out and he has asked the U.S. Supreme Court to throw out millions of ballots, disenfranchise millions of people, and had he been successful, and everyone knew that he wasn't going to in the beginning of this anyway, what it would have done is it would have allowed Texas, Indiana, Georgia to help us determine what we could do in our elections. I don't need that happening. Okay, it was simply a basic political move. State money was spent on it, time was spent on it. It's time to say no, quit it. You know, Donald Trump is not the president of the United States. We have a president of the United States that was fully determined a month ago, and it was formalized yesterday, and it's time to move forward. Time to put this BS behind us.
So what steps did you take? I mean, you didn't just say, hey, I'm disappointed in this. You know, you put the name of my state involved in something that the Supreme Court, you know, rejected out of hand. You actually took some steps to send a message here.
Yeah. I put together a packet of information, sent it over to the State Bar Association. I am asking for a formal complaint into the Attorney General's actions for partisan political activity utilizing state funds to do it. Okay, that's your money, that's my money. Okay, and clearly they did this. You could call the Attorney General's office on Friday, and rather than have them say, "Hey, this is the Attorney General's office. Good morning," they would say, "Good morning. Do you favor us joining Texas in the lawsuit to stop the presidential election?" And it wasn't just me that happened to. It also happened to the head of the State Bar Association, incidentally. And so it's time to file this and see what they want to do about it. There's also a very unique federal rule, and I am not an attorney, okay? But I think it's Rule 11 says that formal attorneys cannot be filing harassing, unmitigated lawsuits in court which Rudy Giuliani clearly has done, and our attorney has clearly joined him. And so let's file under Rule 11 also and give them a little work, okay?
Well, I think you got their attention. You certainly got the attention of news all over the state. You bring up, you called the Attorney General's office. I talked about that on my radio show. They got flooded with phone calls. I gave out their phone number, which I don't feel guilty about one bit. It's a public phone number. You know that my sister...
328-2210.
2210, 328. And both of us probably know the private number that Wayne has. My sister was Attorney General. But I'm not going to give that out, which I think is a perfect example of how both you and I have tried to do this in the line of decency, for lack of a better way of putting it. But that being said, everyone that called there, that called me back and talked to me, said the same thing. They weren't asked their name. They weren't asked where they're from. All they were asked was yes or no when it came to the Attorney General entering into this lawsuit, the state of North Dakota, which tells me, number one, that people were ticked off because they wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't for that. I mean, it wouldn't be. And so, you know, whether or not North Dakotans wanted to be part of this really brought a lot of emotion out, Daryl.
Yeah, it did, but not only that. We used state funding to do this. Okay, you can't do that, and you know, we paid someone who probably makes at least $45,000 a year to sit there and answer that telephone on a political question. Okay, the Attorney General will tell you, well, no state time and effort and money went into this. BS. It did. Okay, you know, I proved it. You heard it. The head of the State Bar Association heard it. Want the money back.
So what's the extreme? If the Bar Association goes about this and says, yeah, I mean, Wayne, you violated the very rules that we live by. You've broke the honor code. You've done everything you could to embarrass us as attorneys in North Dakota. What power do they have? What can they do?
Well, they could disbar him. They're not going to do that, but they potentially could disbar occasionally. You know, twice or three times a year we disbar somebody in North Dakota, and usually it's for, you know, theft of money that's being held in trust and that kind of thing. And we do that. They could do that. The other thing they can do is what's called put a hickey on their record. You know, like found him to be guilty of bad judgment, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And it's too bad that if they approve this, and I think they will, that this career is going to end that way, because I've known the guy for 20, 25 years. And he, you know, this is not the first time that he did this, Joel. Back about 6 or 8 months ago, he joined with 17 other Republican attorney generals in challenging Obamacare before the U.S. Supreme Court. We are still waiting for that decision. If they are successful in that, if they are successful during a pandemic, we will take health care away from people who cannot afford to have it, okay? So I have also asked the Attorney General to give up his state health care while this is going on, while the Supreme Court is answering this, and then find a couple out there who's going to lose their health care if he wins, and explain to them why it's not important.
Yeah, great point. We're talking about over 30 million Americans that are going to lose their health care if he's successful. And here's the other part to that. They don't have an answer. They don't have an alternative plan, which to me is some of the most frustrating things involved in all this. Daryl, how long? When do you hear back from the Bar Association? When do you expect to hear back?
Well, I expect I'll hear something, because I called today to find out if they needed me to sign anything or do anything and that kind of thing. So I expect to be hearing back in the next couple of days. And I also called the Attorney General's office to talk to Liz to see if they were going to have a press conference, and Liz says no.
Well, my guess is it's going to stay no. I've got just a couple of minutes left. Daryl, 1 minute left. Give me one good North Dakota story. Come on.
All right. Your crowd is going to think you're crazy, but I collect North Dakota cemetery stories, okay? North Dakota cemetery stories. Recently, a friend of mine went back to his hometown, and he drove around the cemetery, and he noticed all throughout the cemetery there were little flags that were planted, these little construction flags on wire. So he went. Most small towns have somebody that they kind of put in charge of the cemetery for lack of something else to do. He found that guy, And he said, "Hey, what's the deal with all the flags out at the cemetery? What's going on?" The guy said, "Well, you know, when you get a lot of snow and somebody passes away and you got to dig that grave, she's awful tough to find the right spot. So what I do every fall, I take my notebook out and I go around to all the basketball games and church suppers. I make notes on who isn't looking real good."
Okay, I just hope that he never comes to a basketball game and sees
No,
me.
Joe, where's your hometown so we can go out and
I
do a
am
little
not
checking
going
on your
there, but
spot?
I hope he doesn't go to St. Peter and Paul's Catholic Cemetery. Daryl, always good to visit with you. We're gonna do this again on North Dakota History, okay?
You got it, buddy.
Daryl Dorgan, ladies and gentlemen. When we come back, Dr. Ann Burnett, and I want to stress this, Dr. Ann Burnett, right after this from NDSU.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
In southwestern and south central North Dakota, on any given day at any given moment, a Dakota Community Bank and Trust customer is logging in or signing on to do their online or mobile banking. We believe that community banking can blend both the past with down-home customer service in-house and the future with modern banking conveniences and technology for our customers anywhere, like here or here, all while honoring our long-standing tradition of community-first oriented banking here at Dakota Community Bank and Trust.
My wife was diagnosed with early stage Alzheimer's. We talked about it and we kind of decided we'd be a little bit proactive and try to start making provisions. So we started looking here, and Eventide worked out to be pretty much the perfect answer. I guess I didn't expect it to be so nice. The staff here are terrific. We enjoy it.
They say when the going gets tough, the tough get going. At OK Tire, we're here to keep you going. From Firestone tires and replacements to retreads and even Firestone tracks, we have you covered. Our certified Firestone experts are ready to get you back up and running, no matter if you're on site or in the field, saving you time and money. OK Tire, we keep the tough going.
Now is the best time to plan for your 2021 farm equipment needs. North Dakota-based Summers Manufacturing is currently offering early order savings. Take advantage of big savings on North America's broadest tillage line, including the Super Kohler Samurai and the innovative VRT Renegade, as well as the best-built, best-backed land rollers in the industry. Talk to your Summers dealer today or go to summersmfg.com to learn more about early order savings available on all Summers equipment.
Welcome back to Down the Road. I'm going to stress this part of the name. Are you ready? Because she's earned it. Because it's hers. Because she has it coming. That's Dr. Ann Burnett is joining us now. She's retired NDSU professor, and she studied or actually worked within the area of women and gender studies. So, Dr. Burnett, good to have you going down the road with us.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
I want to talk about what happened with the Wall Street Journal. Joseph Epstein decided, you know what, he's going to pick a fight. And that fight is going to be with Jill Biden, because Jill Biden has earned her doctorate as well. And she has the title Dr. Jill Biden. That ticked him off, probably because he doesn't have one, or probably because he wanted to pick a fight. but obviously it upset him, and he wrote an editorial about it. What do you think drove this? What do you think caused this to become an issue?
Well, maybe you're right. Maybe he was trying to pick a fight. But maybe he's not used to and not comfortable with women having PhDs and being addressed as doctor. Maybe that bothers him. He's an older guy. Maybe he just is used to doctors being in white coats and stethoscopes and men. I don't know.
Well, let me throw this at you. Number one, there's quite a contrast between first ladies. That doesn't diminish either one of them. I understand that. But Jill Biden has been that individual that has shown her dedication to education. As the wife of the vice president, you couldn't take her out of that classroom. She wanted to be in that classroom, which is how you spent your life. And so to sit there in any way, shape, or form to pretend that this is something honorary or something that she hasn't put to work is absolutely ridiculous. The Wall Street Journal really doubled down on it, saying that it was identity politics. You've studied this. You've taught this. What's your take on that?
It is not identity politics, as far as I can tell. It's about demeaning and misogyny against women. And for some reason, maybe he's not a Biden fan, he thought it'd be a good idea to attack her. But I can tell you that for me and for people that I know that have posted their comments lately, it's not about identity politics. It's more of a personal affront that the work that we have put into getting our doctorates is being dismissed.
You know, I've met many people like yourself. You've earned that doctorate. You've earned the right to be called Dr. Burnett, and yet you say all the time when I visit with you, you know, just call me Ann, which is what Jill Biden does as well. And
Yes.
there's people, there's an individual in my family that I understand that same thing with. They don't wear it egotistically on their sleeve, but it doesn't change the fact that they've earned that. And
Right.
so do you think that drives him nuts the most? Do you think that he sits there and she has something he doesn't?
Possibly. I don't know why he thought this was a good idea. I'd love to chat with him and see what he has to say. But you're right. I do usually just tell people to call me Ann, and that's fine where I've taught NDSU. It's a very casual place, and I don't mind that. However, when I've taught my classes, when I introduce myself, I tell them, you may call me Ann, you may call me Dr. Burnett. Please do not call me Mrs. Burnett, because I worked for that doctorate, and when I hear Mrs., I think that you're calling me the name of a high school teacher. So I make that clear. Just whatever you call me, don't call me Mrs.
See, I think women as a whole have, in my lifetime, you know, I have seen people very important to me in my life not change their last name.
Right.
And so names matter. To them, they didn't want to give up their last name. My sister's, the name of Heitkamp, only one changed her name, and she was the first one married. And that time, that whole tradition changed in between her marriage and my next sister's marriage. But I remember my wife joking around saying, are you going to take the name Arthur, which was her maiden name? So, and she took my name, full disclosure here, but that was her choice as well. She knew it didn't matter with me. So names matter. But values matter. The value of your work, the value of your life, the body of that work that you leave behind. What does this say to my 5 granddaughters that I hope have the same title in front of their name someday because of their studies?
Well, the editorial says it's not worth a piece of paper. It's not worth the paper it's on. And I certainly hope that that is not a message that's communicated forward to individuals like your granddaughters.
Yeah, so do I. Because again, I'll repeat, it's earned. Now, we had a chance to talk earlier on my radio show, and the one thing that came across, and I think it was an interjection of a legitimate question, which is, are the universities giving away the honorary doctorates too easy and therefore diminishing what you've done, earning your doctorate? And so I'm going to throw that question at you.
Sure. First of all, I would say they're very different. One, you go to school and you really work hard and you earn it. The other, you earn it maybe through the work you've done or the contributions you've made to society. So they're very different. Are we giving away too many of them? I really don't know. I can't answer that. I can tell you from my experience, the folks that I've seen get them have been well-deserving alumni usually, who have gone out and really changed the world. And for me, that's fine. And, you know, amongst faculty, we never discuss honorary doctorates as being a watered down version of us. It's just something that universities do. And as far as I know, other professors, including myself, are not bothered by it.
You know, it's like anything. It seems to me that if you abuse the title, if you abuse what you are, you're going to diminish it.
Right.
You know, if you walk around and you pretend that you have your doctorate in a field that really doesn't pertain to what the conversation or you know, what's being asked of you, you really can take that away. And so you've seen people do this, Dr. Burnett.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have friends that go to a restaurant and they say, "Hi, I'm Dr. Smith," expecting to get a quicker seat at the restaurant. That to me is ridiculous.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about what good comes out of this ridiculous editorial. I want to talk about, you know, all the conversation that's being had nationwide and being had right here as we go down the road. What good do you see that potentially can come out of this?
Maybe individuals hadn't really thought about this idea that women can be professors and doctors, and they should be accorded that title if they've earned it. Maybe it's brought up a discussion that would not have otherwise taken place. So that's a positive.
I look at your field and I look at your body of work, and you know, I remember a statistic, true in my time in the legislature, that women earned 73 cents on the dollar of what men earned. And
yeah,
so
now it's 78.
So we haven't made much progress,
Yeah.
is what you're getting at. So
and for women of color, it's less.
Which I think conversations like this help, because you know what? There's a lot of people watching down the road right now that didn't know that hopefully will know that. And it goes right to exactly what we're getting at, your value and diminishing your value. Dr. Burnett, thank you. Thank you for coming on. I know you'd rather have me just call you Ann, but on this time, I'm for sure going to call you Dr. Burnett.
I like it. I like it. Thanks so much.
You bet. When we come back, Andrew Winton is going to join us. He's a professor at the University of Minnesota. We're going to get a chance to talk to him about what regulators leave a warning for the Biden team. So stick around. More coming to you right here on Down the Road.
Howdy folks, it's the County Cafe. I reckon it's time you're due for a hearty meal. So saddle up for the day with one of our hey-bossing breakfast homemade soups. Fill your grill at our salad bar, sink your teeth into our famous County Line burger and barbecue ribs. Top it off with spoon-rattling pie with a calm roll that's sure to put a smile on even the toughest outlaws. Shake the dirt off the boots each night and warm up with the gang. Tell them about it, Stacy.
I can't wait to see you at the County Line.
Since opening in Hebron in 1940, Dakota Community Bank and Trust has been your hometown bank. Our mission has been to provide modern banking convenience with old-fashioned hometown service. We've grown with the communities we serve through year-round events, countless sponsorships, and nearly 7,000 hours of volunteering each year. Learn more about our 80-year history at dakotacommunitybank.com.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
For the greatest selection and full menu offering is the Four Season Restaurant and Ice Cream Parlor in Garrison. Succulent sandwiches, big breakfasts served all day, and delicious desserts. Easy access in and out for campers and RVs. The Four Season Restaurant at the top of Main Street, Garrison.
Are you a thrill seeker, sightseer, or day tripper? The Ford Bronco Sport SUV is built for you. Four Bears Casino is giving away a 2021 Ford Bronco Sport loaded with a ton of interior space, safari-style roof, smooth suspension for any terrain, and easy-to-clean surfaces. Qualify now just by playing your favorite slots at Four Bears Casino. Double points on Sundays. Also get in on Super Senior Wednesdays, slot turning Thursdays, and hot seats on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Spin into Four Bears Casino and Lodge for chances to win.
Some things in life are hard. That's why banking shouldn't be. Cornerstone Bank.
You know, we're pretty fortunate now. Andrew Winton is good enough to come down the road with us. He's a professor at the University of Minnesota who understands, the financial side of transition and the mess that can be left behind and what to look out for. We all saw what happened in 2008, and we know what trouble was involved there. And so, Professor Winton, good to have you coming down the road with us.
Thank you. Thank you, Joel.
Want to talk to you a little bit about the concerns that the Trump administration has waiting for the Biden administration. What type of, for lack of a better way of putting it, wet bundle is the Biden team going to pick up here?
There are a lot of different things, but I think the issue you want me to talk to is on the financial side, specifically the short-term funding markets. Those kind of blew up during the crisis of 2008, especially when the Lehman Brothers failed. And then they seized up again in March when the COVID pandemic really got going. And in both occasions, the Federal Reserve and the Department of the Treasury had to step in and try to save the day. And I guess the concern is this could happen again. There still could be stresses. I would say the COVID situation and the crisis of 2008 were pretty severe stresses, but I know the article you asked me to comment on suggested that things aren't all that well even when it isn't a major crisis. Yeah. And the sense is that the Trump administration hasn't fully fixed the problem. The Biden administration will have to try to.
So what's the indicators? What's the tells here that, give a man with your expertise the ability to say, all right, that's a red flag?
Okay, I guess the tells are things like what short-term interest rates, and these are the interest rates that banks and other major institutions pay to borrow from one another, either overnight or for short periods of time, a week, a month, something like that. And when those rates spike, which they did in March, but they had also done it back in the crisis of 2008, that means it's hard for banks to borrow money. And that's why they're willing to pay a high amount of interest, because they say, we really need this cash so we can meet our obligations, whether it's you pulling money out of your checking account or someone coming in for a loan. They need to be able to give that person the money. And if they don't have it already, they got to go out and get it. That's what the short-term funding markets are focused on.
So this is an amateur's look at this, and then you can explain to me why I'm wrong, okay? Which I don't doubt I am. I'm usually wrong on these things. But we've got an economy that, as you look at it, has been a little bit, in a holding pattern. and you're sitting there waiting for COVID to get done so that we all can go out and buy a steak, or we all can head out and take a look at that TV we want, or whatever. And of course, we've all been shopping online to the point where we now have an even bigger deficit with China. I looked it up today, and we're looking at over $70 billion in the month of November on a trade deficit. So we're sitting there waiting, but now we know there's a vaccine. Now we know that's coming. Does that give an injection for immunity, but also give an injection for hope?
I think so. My sense is the biggest risk to those markets is another economic or financial crisis. And now we know hope is on the way. It's just a question of how long it takes and how bad things get before that vaccine is fully rolled out to the population. And, hopefully we'll avoid anything major. There are concerns, though, just economics. On the economics front, we know that a number of moratoriums on things like evictions or foreclosures on mortgages, those sorts of things, are coming to an end. That could cause stress. And the problem is, it's not just, it's bad enough for the person being evicted or losing their house, but then that creates bad debts. That hurts the institutions, the banks and other lenders. They're more reluctant to lend. That hurts other businesses and individuals, and then it snowballs, which is basically what happened back in 2008. So there is still some risk out there, I would say. And, the question is, can we avoid it getting too bad, for as long as it takes to get the vaccine out?
So a new PPP takes care of some of this. The government basically saying, all right, we recognize it. We've got trouble. This didn't happen before the election for all kinds of political reasons. It hasn't happened directly after the election because of all kinds of political reasons. And I would argue that after we find out who the United States senators from Georgia are, it could happen. So what I'm asking is, when and if it happens, does it take some of these concerns away?
The PPP is going to take some concerns away for the broader economy. But then there's the question of the money markets functioning well, because the problem there is if investors get spooked, which happened in the crisis back in 2008, but also in March, they pull all their money out of money market mutual funds or out of bank deposits for that matter, then banks don't have the cash they need because the mutual funds are big funders of banks short term. So, all these things make it hard for banks to get money on short notice. And that can also create problems on the economics front, over and above things like evictions and foreclosures and so forth.
All right, filter this, Doc. Andrew,
Andy is fine.
Filter this, because you're going to, I don't want to involve you in this. I'll just make the comment, and then I'll let you see whether or not I'm right about this one. But I think it's 36 days. I think it's 36 days until the Republicans are going to start using the term national deficit again. I don't think they've used it in 4 years, but they're going to start saying national debt again in 36 years. So what happens there? Joe Biden becomes president. The attitude is completely different, and they start saying we got to watch pennies all over again. How does that affect all this?
My guess is it will not affect the ability of the Treasury and the Federal Reserve to intervene in the short-term funding markets, because that isn't bolstering the deficit. That's not spending. That's acting as a backstop. And there's limited concerns that if you lend money into those short-term markets, that you're not going to get it back eventually. The bigger issue is going to be something like PPP, because with PPP, the government is extending loans not just to these banks short-term, but to businesses and individuals, well, mostly businesses, I guess, and proprietorships. And the problem with that is, some of those loans might not get paid back, and then that does create a drain on the U.S. deficit. And you're right. If a political party, the Republicans, decide to make a big deal over deficit spending, then that would be a possible target.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be quite interesting. I think my prediction on this one's going to be true. Does it help at all the situation that President-elect Biden has appointed a former chair of the Fed to become his Secretary of the Treasury?
I think at least one good thing out of that is whatever you think of Janet Yellen's policies, she's an established player. She was on the scene for many years. She was actually at the Fed during the crisis, though not the chair at the time. And, she knows how Washington works. And I think that would give comfort to everyone. I also think that, again, in the short term, I don't think the Republicans would push too hard against intervening in the money markets. But the PPP, yeah, they might push back, but at least Janet Yellen is a known quantity, and that I think that can only help.
I don't think people looked at her as some partisan, and I think that helps out with all of this. And for me personally, somebody who just went through and borrowed a loan for a piece of property at this age, I should never be borrowing money anymore. I can tell you, I was happy interest rates were where they're at. So, Mr. Winton, thank you. Thanks for taking the time to come and visit with us.
You're very welcome. You take care.
You bet. You too. Folks, I got some comments for you when we come back. Let's talk a little bit about the shots. They're out. We're seeing what's happening in Sanford. They're the first to get the shot in the arm. Good, bad. Also want to talk to you about the Electoral College, and that's going to be first. Want to talk to you about the vote that was held yesterday and how ridiculous some of that was.
Howdy, folks. It's the County Line Cafe. I reckon it's time you're due for a hearty meal. So saddle up for the day with one of our Hey Bossin breakfast homemade soups. Fill your grill at our salad bar. Sink your teeth into our famous County Line burger and barbecue ribs. Top it off with spur rattling pie with a comb roll that's sure to put a smile on even the toughest outlaws. Shake the dirt off the boots each night and warm up with the gang. Tell them about it, Stacy.
I can't wait to see you at the County Line.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county.
Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota. Capital City Restaurant Supply is your one-stop shop for quality restaurant products for the large to small kitchens. Commercial-grade restaurant and bar supplies, limb game processing equipment, refrigeration, dinnerware, and smallware. We sell everything including the kitchen sink from trusted manufacturers for the chef and all of us. Open to the public since 1971, we are veteran-owned and North Dakota proud. Let us take care of your restaurant and home kitchen needs today by visiting us at 1414 Interstate Loop in Bismarck or on the web at capitalcityrestaurantsupply.com.
My wife was diagnosed with early stage Alzheimer's. We talked about it and we kind of decided we'd be a little bit proactive and try to start making provisions. So we started looking here, and Eventide worked out to be pretty much the perfect answer. I guess I didn't expect it to be so nice. The staff here are terrific. We enjoy it.
They say when the going gets tough, the tough get going. At OK Tire, we're here to keep you going. From Firestone tires and replacements to retreads and even Firestone tracks, we have you covered. Our certified Firestone experts are ready to get you back up and running, no matter if you're on site or in the field, saving you time and money. OK Tire, we keep the tough going.
Now is the best time to plan for your 2021 farm equipment needs. North Dakota-based Summers Manufacturing is currently offering early order savings. Take advantage of big savings on North America's broadest tillage line, including the Super Kohler Samurai and the innovative VRT Renegade, as well as the best built, best backed land rollers in the industry. Talk to your Summers dealer today or go to summersmfg.com to learn more about early order savings available on all Summers equipment.
If you were there for the whole ride today as we went down the road, the one thing that you heard us talk about was the Electoral College and how it works. Now, I've never hid the fact that I'm not a big Electoral College fan. And you might say, well, geez, it's the only power North Dakota has. Okay, if we have so much power, then where is it? I just want to know. They know they're going to get the 3 votes out of North Dakota, period, on the GOP side. So when you look at the Electoral College and the process that we just went through yesterday in the voting at the Electoral College, you look at that process this time and it was absolutely disgusting. People should not have to walk into a chamber to vote on an election that has already been decided under armed guard. That's what happened in Michigan. And then to have people say, oh, we're different electorates from the Arizona. We're sitting here from Arizona and we're going to come and we're going to deliver this even though we didn't win the election. Here's our votes in Arizona. Quite frankly, that's fraud. And it's something I think that we as a society not just take lying down. I think that we collectively, because both parties, if this becomes the norm, both parties could end up doing it. So it becomes a question of what got decided yesterday. What got decided? Do we have a president-elect, which I think we've had for quite some time? But listen to what Mitch McConnell, the majority leader in the Senate, said.
So today I want to congratulate President-elect Joe Biden. The President-elect is no stranger to the Senate. He's devoted himself to public service for many years. I also want to congratulate the Vice President-elect, our colleague from California, Senator Harris. Beyond our differences, all Americans can take pride that our nation has a female Vice President-elect for the very first time.
Now, I would add that 4 years ago, actually it would be 8 years ago, well, it's even further. Let's go back. 12 years ago, Mitch McConnell said it's his job to make sure that Barack Obama is a one-term president. Totally disagreed with that. I think it set a terrible tone going in. So hopefully this is a completely different tone than he set last time. But at least he acknowledged the fact that Joe Biden won the election. The big question now is, will Donald Trump ever? It's been good riding with you, folks. We'll see you down the trail.